The man in black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed him.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the internet. Welcome to the Book Report here on the Random Media Guys channel. The Book Report is the show we talk about books, science fiction, fantasy, thrillers, mysteries, and nonfiction. I found these books interesting, and I think you might find them interesting too. So, for this week, I decided to do something very topical. Last week, the trailer for The Dark Tower dropped. Now, for those of you who may not know, The Dark Tower is a book series by Stephen King. He considers his magnum opus, and I'm like, okay, good, a good Stephen King movie's finally coming out. So I thought I would cover the series, at least the first two books, in a quick review. Now, unlike before for these reviews, I am not going to go into extensive details. Instead, this is be a brief summary of the first two books of the series, The Gunslinger and The Drawing of the Three. I just wanted to do it quickly because, well, the stories are getting a lot of detail. So if you would like me to do a comprehensive review of each of the books, please leave a like and a comment in the comment section below, and I will do it in the future. But now let's get into Dark Tower, The Gunslinger, and Drawing of the Three by Stephen King. Now, a quick story about the first book. The first book actually initially was a set of short stories written by Stephen King back in 1978, but were since collated into a single book known as The Gunslinger. Now, there was a revised edition of the book released, I believe, in 2003, which is considered the definitive edition. The book I read, I believe, was the revised edition, so no problem. Anyway, our story follows Roland Deschain. Now, Roland Deschain is the last of the gunslingers. In this universe, the gunslingers are essentially like cowboy knights. He was from the kingdom of Gilead and is the son of King Stephen, the last king of Gilead. So basically, he was supposed to be king of Gilead. The problem was his country became under attack by rebels, and now he's chasing down the man who started this, the man in black, who is known as Walter. Now, on his way across the desert, he encounters a young boy named Jake Chambers. Now, Jake, turns out he died in our world back in the 1980s. He was pushed by some asshole into oncoming track and was killed, but somehow woke up in Roland's world. Now, Jake is talking about, things from our world versus Roland's world. Now, one of the things that's interesting is there's a lot of, references to, things that happened in the 80s. And that comes in the later books. Jake is talking to Roland, tell him about what happened. Occasionally he remembers his own death. And they eventually get close to the man in black, and Jake falls out of a mining cart on their way. Don't worry, Jake comes back in some sort of convoluted timeline that you have to read the third book to get. So Roland confronts Walter, who in the live action is to be played by Matthew McConaughey. He's like, "Caught you, man. Now it's time to talk." And Walter's like, "Okay, you don't want to kill me. You're actually the Dark Tower, which will allow you to reset the timeline." He tells Roland that in order to get to the tower, he's going to need to get three people, and he pulls out tarot cards. The first one is the prisoner, who we learn later on is a man by the name of Eddie Dean. Second you're going to need is the Lady of Shadows, which is a lady by the name of, who at least becomes known as Susanna Walker. And thirdly, you're going to have to deal with a guy called the Pusher. Now, we learned the Pusher was the guy who killed Jake, and that gets a little complicated in a bit. So Roland falls asleep and wakes up. It looks like 1,000 years has passed, and Walter's gone. He ends up washing up on a shore and getting two of his fingers bitten off by these crab monsters they call lobstrosities. This is, by the way, this is the beginning of the second book drawing of three. So in this book, Roland encounters the first of three doors to, I guess you could say, our world or a version of our world. We learn that our actual world, is a keystone world. Basically, if you understand the whole many worlds theory, basically that we're the center point of the many worlds theory. Roland goes in and first meets up with Eddie Dean, who is a junkie and I guess you could call him a coke mule. Yeah, I think that's right. No, he was a heroin mule. That's right. So he basically tells him that he's going to help save him, and he helps him get free of this Italian drug kingpin by the name of Balazar. Now, when Roland draws Eddie into his world, Eddie starts going through a massive withdrawal, and it makes him almost like paranoid at the point he almost blasts Roland. Then they jump into another world. Now this woman was, originally is known as Susanna. What's her middle name? So Odetta Holmes. Now Odetta Holmes has split personality due to having a minor brain injury when she was younger and getting her legs cut off because she was pushed in front of a train when she was younger. So she's a double amputee. Now we learn that because of her training, she's developed a second personality, which basically is a racist caricature known as Detta Walker. Now, Detta actually hates Roland because he refers to him as a fucking honky and cracker when they draw her into Roland's world. And that kind of becomes a key point. Now, sidetracking, the movie, they're having Roland being played by Idris Elba. Now, in the book, Roland is described looking like a kind of a Clint Eastwood type. So there is, and don't mean to be person for the adaptation and saying, oh, they're race changing, but I will say that in the book, it is a important part of the story. I'm curious how they're going to deal with that. So, back to the book. Now, Roland now has to go deal with the third door, and this is to the pusher. Now, Roland gets into this guy's head. I can't remember the character's name is. And he basically uses a chance to do a few things. One is to get some freaking bullets because his two guns are running out of bullets since basically his kingdom is gone and hardly anybody makes bullets. So he manages to use the pusher because part of the ability, the doors is the ability to possess people. He uses it to get the medicine he needs and get the bullets. He also uses it to basically save Jake because this guy was destined to push Jake into oncoming traffic. So he basically throws the pusher and kills him. Now, we learn later on this causes some sort of mental paradox in Jake. But eventually, in the third book, The Wasteland, they get Jake into their world with the help of Eddie. That's how the story goes on. That's how their merry band, or as they call it, their quartet, go on their way to get to the Dark Tower. And I'm going to leave it off there because there's a lot of stuff in these books. So, I would say this is a phenomenal series. I would recommend you checking it out. It falls into actually an interesting genre, by the way. It falls into a kind of sci-fi, fantasy horror. And not horror like you're used to seeing. This is not an It. This is not a Shining. This is a, bodily horror. Like, there's a bit of, thinking of Lovecraft in here. I mean, they deal with, demons. Like, there's a scene where Roland, in order to get rid of a demon, he basically has to engage in intercourse with a demon. And in the third book, The Wasteland, Susanna, who's basically a composite, or I guess a refusion of Odetta and Detta, who basically now loves Eddie, basically has to lure a demon with sex and then keep on this demon's invisible, while Eddie focuses on getting the door open to get Jake into their world. So there's that kind of, like very like supernatural, but kind of like it's really interesting. Now, quick thing about this book. As I said, this book is what Stephen King considers to be his magnum opus, his center stage for all his other books. If you've read Salem's Lot, you've read It, you've read, well, a fuck ton of books. There's some reference. This thing is quite literally the equivalent of like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it's like the Stephen King literary universe. Or multiverse, actually, would be more appropriate. So if you read this book and you've read Stephen King, go, I get that reference. There you go. So the Dark Tower series, mainly the first two books, Gunslinger and Dwelling of the Three, I highly recommend you check them out and enjoy your by the way, these are really thick books. I did these on audiobooks and they're like 25-hour long audiobooks. If you have time or you have a job where you can read and it takes a long time, get them. Thank you for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, if you liked the content I make, leave a like and subscribe. And tell me what books you might want me to read and review. Maybe there's something I haven't checked out that might be interesting. No problem. I am Dan, the Random Media Guys, and I will see you guys later.